It was an anniversary gift, $189 from the big box electronics chain near the interstate. The mic was on by default. She never looked at the manual. Most people do not. I hardwired the cam to the fuse box myself. That kept it powered when the engine was off. Parking mode stayed active 24 hours a day. A normal dash cam shuts off the second you turn the key. Mine never shut off. It saw every minute of every day for 22 days. There was a 256 gigabyte high endurance micro SD in it, the kind that keeps writing without burning out. GPS overlay stamped on every clip. Latitude, longitude, speed, and time, down to the second. Here is how a dashcam keeps audio for 3 weeks. It does not. In most setups, it writes over the oldest clip every loop, unless the cam tags a clip as an event lock. Then that clip stays until somebody deletes it by hand. Two things lock a clip: a hard brake or a G sensor hit, or motion in parking mode when the engine is off. My wife was a hard braker. She always had been, and she sat in the parked car a lot, talking on the phone, reading texts before she got out, drinking her coffee with the engine off. That is the part she forgot. The cam was still recording. The mic pinhole on the body is the size of a pencil tip. You stop seeing it after a week of driving. Audio went straight into the same MP4 as the video. This is the part of the story nobody talks about, the part where the gift becomes the evidence. I have been married 14 years. She has been a stay-at-home wife for 9 of them. I work the transmission grid in East Tennessee. 4 10-hour days, plus storm call once a month. Storm call is the part that matters here. When the system drops, the phone rings. You roll within 60 minutes, no negotiation. You sleep when the line is back up. Sometimes that is 3 days, sometimes 14. Last spring, I caught a Carolina ice storm, 4 days out of state in a man camp. I called her once a day from the staging lot. She said she was busy checking on flip houses. She had been talking about flipping houses for 2 months. We had never talked about real estate in 14 years. I made it home at 6:13 in the morning, tired, smelling like diesel and wet rubber. The dash cam was on the kitchen counter, unmounted, screen blank. She said the card had died. She said I should look at it on my laptop. She poured me coffee like nothing was wrong. I put the SD card in my work bag and forgot about it. I forgot about it for 3 days. On the third day, I had a tailboard that ran short. I had 40 minutes for lunch in the truck cab. The dispatcher had us de-energized at the recloser. I was parked on a service road waiting on a clear. I plugged the card into my work laptop. The clip player loaded 38 event-locked files. That number is what stopped me. 38 locked clips in 22 days. She had been hard braking and parking like crazy. I clicked the first one. The GPS overlay said 2:43 in the afternoon, a downtown address she had never mentioned. The audio came up clear. My wife was on the phone. She was telling somebody she missed him. She used a voice I had not heard in years, the voice she used with me when we were dating. I sat in the cab for almost 2 hours. I forgot to eat my sandwich. My hands were shaking so badly, I set the laptop down. The crew foreman knocked on the window at 1:13. He asked if I was all right. I told him I caught a bad text from home. He waved and walked off. He did not ask twice. I finished the shift, signed off the truck, and drove to my cabin. That night, I sat in the cabin with the laptop on the kitchen table. The cabin sits on land my grandfather left me. I inherited the land before I ever met her. I keep the cabin for deer season and storm rest weekends. I went through all 38 clips that night. Most of them were the same man. She called him Mike. She told Mike that I worked lineman hours. She told Mike that he had no idea. She told Mike that her midweek days were always wide open. She told Mike to park around back because the neighbors would notice every car. She told Mike she would meet him at the listing. She told Mike she could not wait to see him. She used the same line on him she used to send me before storm calls, word for word. One clip caught her reading him a text she had just sent her own mother. Another clip caught her booking a hotel room from the parked car. She gave the front desk our home address for the loyalty points. I am not going to repeat the rest of what she said on those calls. 38 locked clips across 22 days. 11 of those 22 days, she was at the same downtown address. I cross-referenced the GPS coordinates against a map. The address was a real estate brokerage. She had told me she was 40 miles north scouting flip listings. The brokerage sat 7 miles from the front door of the house. She had been lying for at least 22 days, probably longer. I started paying attention to other things after that. The way she changed her hair mid-week, the way she stopped asking when I would be home. A co-worker of mine recommended an attorney. He had used her for his own divorce 2 years before. He said she was sharp and she did not waste time. I called the office on a lunch break. She told me right away her retainer was $5,000. I scheduled an intake appointment for 4:23 the next afternoon. I brought the SD card with me in a padded mailer. It turned out to be exactly the wrong move. The attorney listened to 3 minutes of the first clip. She paused it. She said, "I want you to listen to me very carefully. You cannot use this audio in court." I sat there with my hands flat on my knees. I told her Tennessee was a one-party consent state. I told her the car and the dashcam were both in my name. She let me finish. Then she explained what one-party consent actually means. A party to the conversation has to consent. The wife did not consent. The man on the phone did not consent. I was not a party to either conversation. I was a third party who recorded them without permission. Under Tennessee Code 39-1361, that is a Class D felony, 2 to 12 years in prison, a civil judgment of $10,000 minimum if she sues me, plus punitive damages and her attorney fees on top. There is a Tennessee case called Robinson versus Fullerton. The court ruled the $10,000 floor is mandatory. I asked her if owning the car changed anything. She said no. She said owning the device or the vehicle is irrelevant. The statute protects the conversation, not the property. There is a federal case called Glasner versus Glasner. The 11th Circuit ruled there is no interspousal exception. A husband cannot record his wife. A wife cannot record her husband. Spousal status is not a defense. She said, the only thing the audio can do for me is one thing. It can tell us where to look. She said the audio is a roadmap. We use what I heard to direct lawful discovery. We never let the audio touch the courtroom. We never even tell anyone outside this room that it exists. I asked her what lawful discovery meant. She said it meant hiring a private investigator. She wrote out 4 names on a sheet of paper. She said all 4 had worked for her clients in the past 3 years. She said all 4 were licensed in Tennessee. She said pick one and do it before the end of the week. She said once the petition is filed, we subpoena phone records. We subpoena hotel records for the dates the GPS overlay flagged. We pull the credit card statements going back 12 months. Tennessee is equitable distribution, not community property, she said. That means 50-50 is the floor, not the ceiling. Splits can run 55-45 or 60-40 in the right circumstances. She explained the dissipation rule next. Under Tennessee Code 36-4-121, property is divided without regard to fault. Adultery alone does not shift the property division. The exception is dissipation. Money spent on the affair is wasteful expenditure. Hotels, gifts, restaurants, jewelry paid from marital funds. Every dollar she spent on him comes back to me as a credit. The credit pulls my share of the marital pile up. Her share goes down by the same amount. dollar for dollar. She said alimony is a different story. Tennessee Code 36-5-121 lists 12 factors. One of them is the relative fault of the parties. Adultery hurts her on the alimony number, but it does not zero her out. Tennessee law bars punitive denial of alimony. The Supreme Court of Tennessee settled that years ago. She said we argue for rehabilitative alimony, short-term, modifiable, premised on her re-entering the workforce. We do not fight for zero. We fight for the smallest number on the shortest leash. Then she asked me about my pension. I told her I have been at TVA for 19 years. The TVA retirement system is not under federal. It is its own animal. We use a domestic relations order, not a QDRO. The math is the same. We calculate the coverture fraction. That is the months I was married during my employment, divided by the total months I worked at TVA at retirement. That fraction times the pension is the marital portion. That marital portion is what gets split. She said the land I inherited stays separate property too. The same statute covers inherited land, even if the value appreciated during the marriage. The cabin on the land stays with me. The improvements we made to the main house split equitably. I called the first private investigator on our list before I left the lot. He said he had a 4-day window starting the next afternoon. He charged $750 a day plus expenses. I told him I needed photos at a specific downtown address. I gave him the broker's location and the realtor's first name. I gave him the times the audio had flagged. Her brokerage entry hit 243 like clockwork. He said he could work with that. He started the next day. On the second afternoon, he called me from his car. He said she walked into the brokerage at 2:43 on the dot. He said she walked out with a man at 4:17. He said the two of them drove separately to a hotel parking lot. He said they entered the building at 4:31. He said they exited separately at 6:24. He had photos of all of it. The man was the realtor who had listed flip houses she was scouting. I asked the private investigator to give me 2 more days. He agreed. He caught them at the same hotel parking lot on the 3rd afternoon. He caught them at a different chain hotel on the 4th. He ran the realtor's plate through a public record search. The plate came back to the same name on the brokerage website. He gave me a folder with 84 time-stamped photos. I gave the folder to my attorney that same afternoon. She filed the divorce petition at 9:14 the next morning. The grounds were adultery per the state statute on fault. The proof standard is preponderance of the evidence, inclination plus opportunity, my attorney said. We had both. The PI photos showed the opportunity. The phone records and credit card statements would show the inclination. We never mentioned the Dashcam in any filing. We never mentioned the SD card to anyone outside the office. My attorney kept the audio in her own evidence safe. She told me to never reference it again. Not to my buddy at the hall, not to my mother, not to anyone. I agreed with her instructions. While the wife was at her next showing with the realtor, I moved out. I withdrew $32,000 from our joint savings to a new account in my name. Marital funds withdrawn before the temporary order are legal. My attorney walked me through the paperwork that morning. I did it from a chair in her office. I packed 2 duffel bags from the house. I left the wedding photos on the mantle. I drove to the cabin and slept for 14 hours. I had not slept that long since I was 19 years old. She came home at 7:51 that night. Divorce papers on the kitchen counter. A process server had handed them to her at the front door. She did not see the SD card. The Dashcam was not in the kitchen. Nothing in the room told her what I knew. She called my phone at 8:13. She called again at 8:34, at 9:08, at 9:43. I did not pick up. At 10:51, she left a voicemail. She said I was overreacting. She said we needed to talk. She said I had no idea what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. The next morning, I called her back from my attorney's office. She put the call on speaker. She told my wife to stop calling my phone and to call her instead. She gave her the office number. My wife asked me one question before she hung up. She asked me how I knew. I told her one sentence. I told her I followed a hunch and hired a private investigator. That was true. It was not the whole truth. The whole truth was on a 256 gigabyte micro SD card in an evidence safe. The whole truth was never going to leave that safe. The divorce ran 11 months. Tennessee has a mandatory 60-day waiting period for childless couples. We had no kids. The 60 days came and went. The discovery phase took 4 months. Mediation took another 6 weeks. The pretrial hearings took 2 more. We landed in front of a judge at month 9. The judge had the private investigator's photos. The judge had the credit card subpoena returns. The judge had the phone records, 2,431 calls and texts to the realtor's number over 8 months, $1,847 in hotel charges across the same window, $1,212 in restaurant charges I had never seen on a statement, $743 in gift cards mailed to a post office box in the realtor's name, total dissipation, $3,802 of marital funds spent on the affair. The judge ruled equitable distribution at 55-45 in my favor. The dissipation credit accounted for the shift. The TVAR's domestic relations order divided the marital pension portion. The coverture fraction gave her half of the marriage years. The years before our marriage stayed mine. The cabin and the land stayed mine. The main house was sold and the equity split 55-45. The judge ordered rehabilitative alimony, 24 months at $1,400 a month. She had a college degree she had not used in 11 years. The judge said 24 months was enough to re-enter the workforce. She did not appeal. She knew what would happen if she did. The car title transferred to me as part of the property award. The Dashcam went with the car. I made it to the bottom of the pole every day of those 11 months. A few of the guys had been through it themselves. One of them had been through it twice. We did not say much. We do not have to. Linemen do not waste words on what we already know. The brotherhood is the brotherhood. The Dashcam sat on a shelf in my cabin for 4 weeks after the decree. I could not look at it without feeling sick. I sold it on the secondhand app to a college kid the next month, $80 cash, and a handshake in a parking lot at the strip mall. He was excited to get a good camera for his first car. I told him to read the manual before he handed the keys to anybody. A few of my friends asked me later if I felt guilty about not telling her how I really knew, for listening to the audio, for not telling her I had it. Hell no, I didn't feel guilty at all. She was cheating. She had her own attorney. She knew exactly what she was agreeing to in the settlement. I did not force her into the brokerage parking lot. I did not write the messages. I did not put her in the hotel. She thought she would not get caught. She thought the rules did not apply to her. She was wrong. The mic on the Dashcam was always going to be on. She forgot. That is the only thing that happened. Look, I want to tell you something before I end this story. If you have evidence in your hand that does not feel right, ask first. Ask a real attorney before you do anything with it. Not your buddy at the bar, not the legal expert on a podcast, a real Tennessee attorney with a license on the wall. Mine saved me from a Class D felony charge. Mine kept me out of a felony case and out of bankruptcy. If I had walked into court waving that SD card, I would have lost. I would have lost the case and paid her $10,000 plus her attorney fees. I would have given up the high ground. The pension carve-out goes away. The cabin might go away with it. I would have given her everything she had been planning to take. Instead, I gave her 24 months and a 45% share, and I gave myself a quiet exit. Trust your gut. Document everything, but document it the right way. If you have evidence you cannot use, get an attorney. Let them show you how to build evidence you can. Men, just pay attention. The signs are always there. Some signs are punching us in the face. When that happens, you have to defend yourself to make sure you survive. I know most of us would react first and think later when it comes to betrayal. You can't do that when it comes to fighting in court. Tony's teaches us to slow down, think, and pay attention.